Hello, everyone. My name is Mickey, and I'll be presenting today with Dean, someone I've been working with for a few months. And Dean will be talking about the SELF Pathway, which is a learning managed program. And I won't go into detail about that. But what I'd like to do, first of all, is just to provide a bit of context about where we are with international recruitment. So the NHS nurses have been very much in the news the last few days, and they're always in the news, and it's always about shortages. That now, if you were to go to the US, Canada, New Zealand, numerous other countries, you would also find the same story. So there, besides the NHS, which has a target of 50,000 nurses by 2024. If you were to go to any of these other countries looking for nurses, you'd find very similar targets. So the environment for international recruitment is becoming much more competitive, especially since after COVID, and they're all facing very similar issues. Um, Now, most international nurses come from two countries, and if this was a live session with in front of an audience, I'd probably give you points if you can name the flags. But the first flag there is the Philippines, and the second flag is India. Those are the traditional countries where people have been recruited into the NHS and into other countries. However, there have been other countries coming up the agenda. The next flag there with the shield and the spear is Kenya, and then the jagged flag is Nepal. There's been UK government agreements between these two countries to recruit nurses, and that has also driven up recruitment. The other two flags are from Southern Africa, and you'd get 25 points if you could name the blue and black one. That is Botswana, and next to that is Zimbabwe. So we're seeing more and more nurses coming from those areas, as well as other places in Africa. If you look at the NMC's latest data on their register, I think 4 of the top 6 countries, so the top is always India or the Philippines, and then the others are all from sub-Saharan Africa, so they're coming up. So the geographical pool is expanding, but the challenge for international recruitment remains the same. Now, if any of you saw my presentation last year, you'd say, Mickey, you're cheating. These are the same slides as last year. Yes, because it's the same issue as last year. This hasn't changed, although you'll see with Dean's presentation that we've made progress. So the challenge remains English language. Biggest challenge to international recruitment. CBT, OSCE nurses have very little trouble passing, but for English, it remains stubbornly low, their pass rates, especially for reading, and not so much for writing since the NMC changed their requirements. But as we know, listening and speaking are not enough. Nurses have to have the 4 skills, and that remains a challenge for them to perform on all the 4 skills. Another challenge I highlighted last year, which we're making progress on, and I think Dean's going to go into more detail on this, is on a standard preparation offering. Uh, so again, if you were there last year, same slide, same issue. The English language challenge was there 12 months ago. It was there years ago. It's going to be there in years to come. The English language challenge will not go away. So how do we overcome that? We can overcome it by having a systematic approach to language training, and this improves pass rates significantly. But in order to do that, we need to have dedicated funding for these programs. The program with Capital Nurse, and Dean will touch on this in his presentation, but what's happening with Capital Nurse and what's been happening in other programs we've been with is we're finding that if you invest in an international nurses English language training, provide them with a pathway, that actually acts as a magnet for talent. So you can attract more candidates by offering this program. Now, there's always the fear that, okay, we're going to invest in these people once they get their OET, off they go somewhere else. But actually, quite the contrary. What we find are very high retention rates. On other programs we've been working on, retention rates of up to 97%. So I'm going to hand over to Dean now, who's going to talk about the SELF program, and I think he's going to illustrate some of the points I've been making here now. So over to you, Dean.
Thanks very much, Mickey. Hi, everyone. My name's Dean Gimlett. I'm the London Region International Recruitment Lead for NHS England and overseeing the Capital Nurse International Recruitment Programme. Very happy to be here today and looking forward to sharing some of the details of our programme. So as Mickey mentioned, there's obviously significant challenges with international recruitment, and we've set up a model or pathway to enable overseas candidates to achieve their English language level requirements. So what we've set up is something that's called the SELF pathway, which stands for Supporting English Language Foundations pathway. And this is a secondary recruitment route and support offer for overseas nurses and midwives, as I was saying, to obtain their NMC registration through getting the English language level requirements. So the program is not intended to replace candidates who have English language, who are English language ready for at the point of recruitment. That will always be the primary goal. This is a secondary recruitment route, and it provides that targeted support for overseas nurses and midwives. And actually gives them that pastoral care right from the point of appointment all the way to deployment. So just wanted to give a little scene set in there before we went forward. So why did we start this? Well, we carried out a pilot last year, an English language pilot, to obviously test the theory. But if I take a step back, we launched it, we carried out the pilot because of the significant challenges we found with mental health nursing recruitment from overseas. That primarily being due to mental health international recruitment not being as accessible prior to the NMC changes in 2019 for registration of overseas nurses and midwives. We found, because there's a smaller pool of English language ready candidates compared to adult nursing recruitment, and I'm referring here from the green list countries, and there was a higher candidate dropout, significant dropout compared to that of adult nursing recruitment. And also, we also found that mental health international recruitment was a lot more competitive because of the smaller pool and actually going to private sectors. So the pilot we carried out was last year with one of our mental health trusts in London and one of our recruitment agencies. Key learnings from that English language pilot was the importance of the screening assessment. So the OET English language level screening assessment, absolutely essential learning that we picked up from the pilot. And actually that additional testing on the candidate's commitment and understanding of the programme was another essential item. We also found that, obviously, depending where in the world the nurses and midwives are, that IT equipment, having access to IT equipment and internet connection is absolutely essential. And having good pastoral progress review meetings in place for the candidates whilst they're on the OET programme, preparation programme, and having good reporting system back to the employing trusts and so on. And actually having trusts engaged in the process and actually meeting with their candidates who are on the programme as a check-in, because we recognise it's a longer tail end from appointment to arrival with candidates on the SELF pathway. So traditionally, give or take, it's around 3 months in overseas nurse and midwives from appointment to arrival, then about. With candidates on the SELF pathway, it's between 6 to 8 months because obviously they need to do the preparation course. So what is the package that's offered through SELF? So we're able to offer this through the NHS England Mental Health Innovation funding that we rewarded last year. And what we offer is we fund up to £1,000 of English language training costs per candidate who are on the SELF pathway. In that £1,000, that covers one OET preparation course, and that could be 80 hours course, 200 hours, depending on the learning requirements of the candidate and the country. It also covers a relearn course. So worst case scenario, should a candidate fail the first time, then we will pay for a bespoke relearn course of around, I think it's around 80 hours before they sit the next OET exam. And we also identified that it is an increased administration to recruiting agencies. So we also provide a £200 per candidate administration cost to the agency, and cover the fees of the OET baseline pulse screening tests, which is absolutely essential. So in terms of, this is just a high level overview of the candidates' milestones whilst on the programme. As you can see, step one is really about selecting and shortlisting the appropriate candidates. And that's through, again, as I mentioned, the baseline screening assessment, your recruitment and shortlisting criteria and relevant skills, depending on mental health or subspeciality or midwifery, and making sure that candidates are at the right stage of their NMC application. So what we ask for is that they are at the point of they've verified at the eligibility process, and that they do have access to IT equipment. Step two then is the actual interview. If they're shortlisted and get the high level B2 with the OET baseline, they're then interviewed using a specific SELF pathway question set, which includes questions on juggling competing priorities and things like that, because we do recognize that actually it's a big ask for them. You know, they're working in their own jobs, committing to the hours, and etc. And the supporting statement is then submitted as part of that process. They're then enrolled onto the program. Once they meet with the agents, the premium provider, and exam seats are reserved. And then, as you can see, with the rest of the process, it's around a 6 to 8 months period. Just want to share some key outputs really from when we started. So we officially launched in April 2022, and since then we have recruited 71 candidates between April and June on mental health candidates onto the pathway, and that is significant improvement. We found a 90% improvement in terms of slots being filled for interviews, so it really has generated interest. Those candidates on community nurses have a 60% pass rate on their first attempt, and that's out of 24 candidates on the pathway. We currently have 15 midwives that were recruited onto the pathway in August, and we have a 100% retention rate. And actually, overall, of the three subspecialties, it's actually a 98% retention rate across all three in total. So a significant benefit we have found by introducing the SELF pathway. Key from a traction point of view, but actually a benefit. So key challenges really that we came across: standardization of these processes across multiple stakeholders, agencies, and various providers. Candidate baseline screening, making sure that actually that is introduced and that is adhered to, because you're setting the candidate up to fail otherwise. Good reporting, that's something that we found challenging, and obviously getting the OET results out. So our next step is that we are developing a SELF dashboard, reporting dashboard, to ease the monitoring and provide better targeted support for candidates if they are not on track to finishing their OET preparation program or sitting the test, and actually looking to roll SELF out wider, so sharing the learning, sharing the modelling across other regions in England. And this slide really just gives you a little bit of testimonials from candidates that's on the programme, and I'm sure these will be shared later point. Yeah, so that is it, and please visit our website.
Hello everybody, I'm Tracy Collins. I'm the International Nursing and Workforce Lead for the Devon Alliance for International Recruitment. And today I'm going to talk to you about how we set ourselves up as the Devon Alliance. And I have my colleague Carly Boyce with me today.
Thank you, Tracy. So my name's Carly Boyce and I'm the transition lead nurse for the Devon International Recruitment Alliance. And I'm here to talk to you about the pastoral support that we offer our candidates coming through the Alliance. Thanks, Tracy.
Thanks, Carly. So we came about in February 2021 on the back of NHS England inviting trusts to submit bids for international recruitment of nurses. So we came about as the system asset, and it was agreed within Devon that we would actually collaborate together as a partnership to initially recruit nurses into the NHS. So we support our NHS trust, so Torbay and South Devon NHS Foundation Trust, University Hospitals Plymouth, Royal Devon University Hospitals, that's the RD&E, and North Devon, and our Mental Health Trust Devon Partnership. So we've had an incredible journey over the last few months, but what was important for us working across the integrated care system was to really establish ourselves in terms of reputation and building that global networks and nationally and locally. So we worked incredibly hard in terms of our social media, building the Devon Alliance, but also our hashtag, so @NursingInDevon and #NursingInDevon. And as we all know, it's a really competitive field overseas in terms of international recruitment, not only nationally within the UK, but also globally. So we are competing, with the US, which also has, a huge number of nursing vacancies across the country. So it's really important to establish ourselves and for people to get to know who we are as the Devon Alliance. And that's what we've worked incredibly hard on over the last few months. And we worked closely together with all of our stakeholders and partners across the Devon system. And that's what's really important in terms of making it work as an integrated asset. In that stakeholder engagement, each individual trust successfully recruited internationally prior to us coming about. And so it was how we listened and how we worked together and actually pool all of the expertise across the whole system to make this work as a collaboration. So as we started to build our brand and market ourselves and people got to know who we are and our model of care, we have successfully this week recruited and deployed our 600th nurse in 15 months into the NHS in Devon. So it's been an incredible achievement. I mean, it's certainly been a journey that we've undertaken over the last few months, but we're really proud to be in this space today. And what we do is really pride ourselves and focus on direct recruitment so that we can reduce the amount of third-party agencies that are used for international recruitment so that we're able to keep our costs as low as possible for our colleagues and partners, so the funding can be back at the front line and for patient services where it needs to be. Both Carly and myself are senior nurses and have experience in the nursing workforce agenda, but also international recruitment. And so we're confident in terms of our quality assurance and the high calibre of nurses that we bring into the NHS in Devon. And so what we've managed to do with our brand and obviously speaking to our colleagues and networks and HEIs overseas is to share our knowledge and experience from senior nursing perspective and build those relationships, which has certainly helped us promote and receive the high number of direct applicants that we do. We're also just about to start our next big venture, which is supporting our social care colleagues in the recruitment of care workers into the health and care system. And we will be pretty much one of the first to undertake and pave the way of an integrated international recruitment approach. if this works as a pilot, we're hoping that we'll be able to influence national policy in terms of integration of international recruitment, really working with all of our stakeholders, local authorities, independent providers, as well as the NHS, in terms of making this work from a truly system approach. Not only will that help in terms of easing operational flow and pressures within the NHS, but also making sure we have the right care and the right packages in place for our patients, whether that be in their care homes, in their own place, in their own home, or whether that's in nursing homes, supported living, or whether that, of course, is in the acute sector within the NHS. And this pilot is literally just underway as we speak. We've also just started to branch out into our allied healthcare professionals. So we're moving away from just nursing now into other healthcare professionals, so radiographers, occupational therapists and podiatrists. So it's a really exciting time for us in terms of really bringing all of the healthcare professionals under one umbrella for the healthcare system of Devon. So please watch this space. We're very happy to share with you all of our learning along the way. And we look forward to receiving some questions from you later on. So I'm just going to hand over to my colleague, Carly, who will talk through the pastoral support work that she does. Thank you, Carly.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, so we know that pastoral care element for our international nurses is absolutely fundamental. We get a lot of referrals from the nurses that we recruit. They refer to their friends, and that's testament to the pastoral package that is given to these nurses. So what I've done, I've put together a couple of slides just to talk through with you the bare bones of the pastoral package that is offered by the Alliance. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. So the first part of the process is that they apply through our Devon International Recruitment Alliance. They apply for a post. They are interviewed by senior nurses. So our senior nurses represent all of the providers within our integrated care system. And if they're successful, that pastoral care starts right from the day that they are offered the job. So we have a Nursing in Devon YouTube channel, which has a significant amount of educational resource on there for them to access for free. We also host monthly webinar sessions. So our latest webinar was with a stroke nurse consultant a couple of weeks ago, and she talked about looking after patients who had suffered a stroke in the UK. And we know that a lot of nurses watch this on catch up on YouTube later if they've been working on the day. So that first step starts there. Before they arrive, we introduce them to the relevant diaspora group, and we know that diaspora group is really important for their support network when they arrive in the UK. And we know that some of these groups will even send them food hampers to their accommodation on arrival. So I will briefly share with you in a moment, but we have written a system pastoral passport document. So this is an electronic booklet which has been written in collaboration with our providers and covers everything you need to know about living and working in Devon. Things to do on your days off, things if you've got children, what to pack in your suitcase, the seasons and what the weather is like, cost of living, finding accommodation, everything is in there, and we are tweaking as we go. So we're just about to add a section in there on cheap ways to keep warm, just in response to the climbing energy costs that we've got at the moment in the UK, and that we are now heading into the winter, and a lot of our nurses are very cold when they step off the plane at Gatwick. Another important element during their onboarding is we will introduce them to their clinical manager. So they get to put a face to a name before they arrive, and that goes a long way in reducing their anxieties before they arrive. We also set up WhatsApp chats. That's why I put the WhatsApp logo on there. So we have cohort WhatsApp chats for each cohort coming in. That's set up about 6 weeks before arrival. They all start to make friends, and you know that group, they really become their Devon family on their first, from the day that they arrive in Devon. The Alliance team are on there, myself and Laura, who works with me on the pastoral element, and we are there to answer any questions, big or small, just to support them before they arrive. So once they've arrived, we obviously track them and make sure they've arrived safely, but we also follow up with them a couple of weeks after just to make sure everything's going well, check in and see if there's been any problems, but we are also very available for that first few days on arrival. So for example, if they've got issues with accommodation, we will put them in the right direction, or we will escalate to the appropriate managers for them to resolve it. So we are just in the process of setting up a Devon International Recruitment Support Network. We've been granted some Stay and Thrive money, and this is going to be a monthly webinar for all internationally recruited staff for Devon, so AHPs, nurses and social care workers, to be able to come along, and we are looking at having guest speakers, flag posting for career development, and also celebration events, because we want to celebrate the international community that we have in Devon. Let's go to my next slide. So I've just put a screenshot there, an example of some of our YouTubes that we've done. Please have a look. Nursing in Devon. There's a lot of webinars on there. So we've been doing them for over 15 months now. We cover clinical issues such as tissue viability. Lovely Brian came along and talked to us about the cost of living as a Filipino nurse that had come to work in Devon, and they've been the nurses have found them very helpful indeed. And then our pastoral passport. So obviously, as I've mentioned, this was written with the providers across the ICS. We've been tweaking it, so it now includes social care and our allied healthcare professionals, and it really is a one-stop document for everything that the nurses need to know about living and working in Devon, and that document gets sent to them about a month before they arrive, and we pick up any other questions that they may have. I'm just going to stop screen sharing. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. And I think we're happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, everyone, for your presentations. We've now got some time for questions, as ever. So welcome, Carly, Tracy and Dean. Mickey is unable to join us today for this session, but I'm delighted to welcome Emma Longdon. So Emma is Senior Regional Marketing Manager at EMEA OET. So we've already had some questions during the earlier part of the day, touching on support for overseas nurses or internationally recruited nurses. And I know from the viewing figures on our articles on the Nursing Times website that is something that is very much of interest to a large number of people. We've already had a few questions in, so keep them coming. First one I expect is would be for Dean and Emma. So Andrea Williams asks, is SELF open to internationally recruited staff who are already in place? I should just caveat that Andrea is from Central London Community Healthcare.
I'll take that, Emma, if that's helpful. So currently it is only offered to overseas nurses and midwives, because the pathway is intended to support them whilst they are in country. However, I know there are similar funding offers available for any overseas nurses and midwives which have already arrived in the UK. So what I would encourage is to speak to your regional IR leads to see what is available for existing staff and nurses whilst who are already in the UK.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, and now one for the team from Devon. Lisa Sams, she asks, it would be great to know what your accommodation offer is for internationally recruited nurses. And Lisa is from the Northern Care Alliance NHS Trust.
Thank you. Shall I take this one, Carly? Yes, so we offer 2 months accommodation within Devon. We know, as it is nationally, it's a huge challenge, accommodation, and obviously it's not an easy solution. Some of the trusts that we work with have their own accommodation on site. Others actually rent houses and house shares, but we we're very clear from the outset with our staff before they arrive that 2 months is provided free of charge, but after then they will be supported, to obviously find alternative accommodation. And our pastoral leads and IR leads within each organisation work with the individuals in terms of signposting to, various local landlords. There's posts go out on the internet in terms of host families and renting out rooms. But even we're in a holiday resort, certainly in Torbay, and obviously North Devon as well. So there are opportunities to look at different alternatives. So B&Bs and Airbnbs, for example. We know sort of out of season, there's a little bit more of an opportunity to be able to tap into those resources. But it is a challenge. There is no easy solution, but it's just trying to be creative and innovative and working with local authorities and landlords, as much as we can.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we've had a couple more questions come in on accommodation, so obviously one of those things that is very much of interest. Again, turning back to Dean and Emma, Mickey in his initial words mentioned that English language, of course, is the biggest challenge, and the NMC has done some work on this and is in fact doing more. From going to the council meetings, things we're expecting some more changes. So it's a bit of a question of watch this space, I guess. But from your point of view, are you happy with the progress at national level to support what you're doing to basically help more people come to the UK and do what and add to the workforce, which is obviously where we need them?
Yeah, I can respond to that. The program that we're supporting Dean and Capital Nurse with is specific, obviously for them at the moment. But we are looking at the opportunity to run more managed services of this nature with trusts here in the UK, whether that's to support nurses who are already here, which is a question that already came up, or with international recruitment from source markets. So, Mickey alluded to the fact that we have made some improvements and some changes since last year, where we talked about, the obstacle, the hurdle that is the English language challenge, through these managed programs that bring together preparation providers, test venues, recruiters, but crucially begin with the benchmarking of the candidates' current English language level, which is very important in determining the length of the pathway, towards them achieving their OET and therefore their NMC PIN. So we are making good progress, and through partnerships like the one we have with Capital Nurse, we're able to see that happen on a wider scale. So that's really good, a good step forward.
Fantastic, thank you. So next question is around more senior roles. I'm guessing either group could have an answer to this one, because it's asking for examples basically. Josie Lorito, who is Associate Chief Nurse at Buckingham Healthcare, would like to know if you've heard of any examples around international recruitment to senior nursing posts, so band 6 and above, for example. They're asking. So I don't know whether you want to put anyone on the spot. So if you've got any examples of more senior overseas recruitment, let me know.
I can give an example of a couple in London, recent actually, where I'm aware in London we have a collaborative approach, a consortium consisting of 29 NHS trusts who are working together for international recruitment, and something which has been an elephant in the room, I think, for a number of months, if not years, is that recognising prior experience element, isn't it? And I'm aware of a couple of trusts, actually and that's across mental health and acute, where they have recognised that that prior experience, and obviously supported the nurse to either commence a Band 6 role once they've completed their OSCE preparation program, completed the OSCE, registered, and had that period of transition or integration where they'd start then on a Band 6 program. I'm also aware of some recent overseas nurses which are now actually OSCE preparation educators, and has again progressed quite quickly because that particular nurse had a very experienced background in nurse education. I think she was an Indian nurse, and so again, I think recent conversations and recent works, and obviously support and collaboration that we've been doing within and across regions have really kind of opened that front door now, and actually that it's very well that we're all recruiting, but actually there's about that retention element, isn't it? That all of this is a bit of a waste unless we retain these very experienced nurses. So certainly from London, I can think of some of the top of my head, but again, I think this is something which as we progress over the next 6 to 12 months, we'll see a lot more pockets of really best practice kind of approaches with recruiting into more senior roles. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. And turning to the team from Devon, we've had a question in from Lisa Roper, who is a senior clinical educator. And Lisa would like to know how many staff work within your alliance to support your international recruitment program, and also, I guess it should be a fairly easy one, would you be able to share your electronic booklet on working in Devon?
Thank you. So we're a very small team within the Alliance ourselves, so there's 8 of us, but of course we work really closely with all of our providers, so it is a big collaboration. So each individual organisation have IR leads, they have pastoral leads, clinical educators that are all part of the IR teams in each specific organisation. But ourselves, there's 8 of us. We are just expanding now. We need to, as we're branching into social care and other healthcare professionals. So that's how many, we're certainly sort of looking at getting a couple more additional posts into place over the next few weeks and months. But in terms of the pastoral passport, Carly answered that because that's absolutely been her hard work over the last few months to pull all of that together.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, so I'm happy to share. If you want to send me an email, I'm carly.boyce1@nhs.net, and I'll be happy to share that. It is very Devon specific. There's even a page on the back on how to make a Devon cream tea. So yeah, but drop me an email, that's fine.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the pastoral care stuff sounds really fantastic. Having spent a few years living in Exeter, I know that it can be a little bit damp in the autumn, so great stuff to be doing that. Just again, obviously someone asking for the details of the booklet there. To what extent have you had other regions or trusts? Well, I suppose what's take up been like in terms of within your area, and also have you had anyone wanting to share with them across the rest of the country?
In terms of the Alliance, Steve, that's
yeah.
to Devon. Yes. So absolutely. So certainly the last 12 months, we've really started to establish ourselves in terms of the brands, the reputation. Now people certainly know who we are in Devon. So regions are coming to us in terms of sharing best practice, learning from each other, etc., which obviously we're keen to do, and it's what we should be doing. International recruitment's a big part of our sort of workforce supply. So it is around sort of sharing best practice. But certainly very happy to answer any questions, and we'll be in London next week. So happy for people to come and see us in terms of how we've gone about the integration. It's certainly fascinating, and we're learning loads in terms of the social care nuances, really branching outside of the purely NHS at the moment. So very happy to share sort of our learning and what we're doing in terms of working with our local authorities and technically independent providers, and many of them. So yeah, it's great. We are certainly sort of being asked, to share sort of our best practice and learning and how it's gone sort of over the last few months.
Fantastic, thank you. And just this is someone's commented. So Sarah Vega has commented in response to the question earlier on about senior nurses, and she says, one of my students back in 2017 became a band 6 nurse in ICU a couple of years afterwards, and is now actually an OSCE facilitator for the trust herself. So there you go, that's an additional one there. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes left. We've covered quite a lot of ground already. I had a few comments in. I'll just I suppose this is the elephant in the room slightly around international recruitment. So I'll read out a couple of statements, but I won't put anyone on the spot. So Esther Shalom says, well, her question might have a dampening effect, but she says it's important to raise, which is there have been several media voices over the last few years questioning the ethics of recruiting nurses from abroad, especially those with nursing shortages. So what are your views on this? And are we putting in place things to ensure we're not leaving other countries with even greater shortages? We've had several comments in like that, of course, but I suppose that's probably more of a national level question. But if anyone's got anything they want to say on that, let me know. Otherwise, I'll move on.
I suppose I'll just comment on that from the London region's perspective, and not just on the Self pathway, but of, I suppose, the Capital Nurse Consortium. We do only recruit from green list countries, so we will not recruit from any red or amber list countries, because there is absolutely that recognition of, those countries needing the nurses, and actually that, our if you've got a sustainable supply of overseas nurses from green list countries coming in, why would you want to recruit from a red list country? But obviously, we always make sure that we adhere to those ethical standards. So I absolutely agree on everyone's comments on that, because actually we don't want to, be setting up a precedent, do we, where we are taking for nurses from countries that really do need them. So yeah, absolutely.
If I can just comment for Devon as well, Steve, and I echo what you're saying, Dean, there as well, in terms of, only recruiting from the green list countries. So, we are on the ethical code of recruiters on the list. So we absolutely 100% adhere to that code of practice, and rightly so. But it's interesting just to throw into the mix. So countries like the Philippines, for example, who do actually train nurses as an oversupply. It's really important just to think, if we actually cut off the international recruitment supply to the Philippines, and the UK in particular have a big impact in terms of the GDP, which actually goes back into the economy of the likes of the Philippines in terms of, their sustainability, and goes back into their education, obviously health, facilities over there. So, if we were to suddenly stop recruiting, from the UK, from the Philippines, then that would actually have a huge negative impact in terms of the GDP back in the Philippines, for example. And there are some other countries, which are exactly the same. So you're absolutely right. We must follow the ethical code of practice, but also we have to also bear in mind of some of that negative impact that could happen, obviously, if we were to completely switch off international recruitment. And that's not just for nurses as well. There are obviously other, professions out there which is supplied by the Philippines.
Great, thank you. We'll have to leave it there, I'm afraid. We are out of time again. So thank you again to Emma, Dean, Carly and Tracy, and also to Mickey. Our penultimate session is on the new professional nurse advocate role and its benefits in clinical practice. And here to tell us more are Anisha Archianglio and Sam Lungu, both from NHS England and NHS Improvement, and Sue McLaughlin from Berkshire Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. Thank you.